Imagine you're walking through the deep woods. You hear the crunch of leaves under your boots. You feel that crisp air on your face. Well, what you probably don't realize is that a wild wolf may have caught your scent moving through the trees minutes ago. It watched you cross a clearing, evaluated you entirely invisibly, and then it just silently left, long before you even knew it was there. Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this mystery.
So why exactly do wolves spare us? I mean, look at the biological reality of this animal. A gray wolf is an absolutely massive, lightning-fast predator. They're equipped to take down a literal bison. Compared to that, an unarmed hiker wearing fleece, we look frankly structurally unfinished. Yet millions of people hike and camp in wolf country every year without a single scratch. And they don't leave us alone out of mercy or because we taste terrible. It actually all comes down to a cold, calculated economic risk. I absolutely love this quote because it shifts our entire perspective. Predators do not receive medical leave. You see, a wolf relies entirely on discovering a vulnerable animal. Why? Because a healthy adult elk or a defensive bison can shatter a jaw or puncture an abdomen in a split second. And for a wild wolf, one bad injury means it can't hunt, which literally means starvation. So they don't act like these unstoppable movie monsters. Instead, they act way more like highly cautious risk auditors before they ever commit to an attack.
Now, I want you to look through the wolf's eyes for a second. To them, we are terrible prey. We are just utterly bizarre. We stand completely upright, exposing our whole body. We make these erratic, irregular, clunky movements. We travel surrounded by weird tools, fire, noisy metal vehicles, and usually other humans. Compared to the normal, predictable prey in the forest, humans are an absolute nightmare to evaluate. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate reason we are avoided. A deer has never fired a warning shot. As a species, we are historically lethal. We are capable of sudden, distant retaliation. Think about it. A moose doesn't return the next morning with tracking equipment, angry relatives, and a vengeance, right? But we do. From the wolf's perspective, the puny human body is only the visible portion of a much larger, unseen threat.
And, this isn't some new dynamic either. Historically, human beings have ruthlessly selected for caution. Back in the 1800s and 1900s, we launched widespread trapping, poisoning, and intense eradication campaigns that nearly wiped wolves off the map. The wolves that survived didn't necessarily need a history lesson. They just needed to respond correctly to human cues. The bold wolves, they were removed from the gene pool. The ones that stayed far away, moved quietly, and completely avoided us were the ones that survived to pass on that vital, deep-seated caution. Because of this deep inherited caution, distance doesn't always mean wilderness. Sometimes it just means arriving after we leave. You could honestly spend years hiking in prime wolf habitat without ever spotting one, but that's not because they aren't there. It's because the wolf smelled you, analyzed the situation, and made the conscious decision to leave before you even noticed they existed. They are practically invisible, completely by choice.
But okay, what happens when you actually do spot one? There's this massive myth out there that a wolf watching you is a bloodthirsty attack force locking onto its target. The reality? It's usually just gathering information. Now, to our human nervous system, being watched or followed from a distance feels exactly like being hunted. It's terrifying. But the wolf is likely just trying to figure out what you, or your dog, or your unfamiliar camp smell actually means. And, the exact same misunderstanding happens with sound. When you hear a chorus of howls echoing in the dark, it's so easy to assume some tactical attack team has just been activated. But howling isn't a coordinated attack signal. It's basically the acoustic equivalent of a family group chat. They are just checking in, locating each other, advertising their territory. So if you hear howling, there is absolutely no reason to panic and make a bad decision. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual data on wolf attacks. Between 2002 and 2020, researchers across the globe verified just 75 attacks. To put that into perspective, that is incredibly rare over an 18-year period. And staggeringly, 44 of those were driven by rabies, a disease that completely destroys their natural caution. Only 15 were considered predatory, with the rest being defensive, provoked, or just unclear. The vast majority of historical attacks were driven by a virus, not a natural biological urge to hunt humans. Now, if rabies was the big historical driver of attacks, the modern disruptor of their natural caution is food conditioning. This happens when human scent stops predicting danger and begins predicting calories. When people feed wolves, whether deliberately for a photo or just through a really sloppy campsite, they are training the animal terribly. A fearless wolf expecting a handout isn't inherently evil, it's just enforcing a really bad lesson. Feeding a wild wolf is essentially making a long-distance decision about who gets bitten later. So wildlife managers actually assess this escalating risk by looking at specific behaviors. A wolf fleeing immediately, that's just normal caution. A wolf calmly crossing a road 200 meters away, that's ordinary habituation. It's just used to living near our roads and infrastructure. But a fearless wolf repeatedly walking right into camps in broad daylight, that is dangerous boldness. Having a wild predator walk into your campsite isn't some magical connection with nature. It is the beginning of a highly dangerous management problem. Let's move to and see how this builds when we look at pack dynamics. We really have to ditch this popular myth of the alpha wolf commanding some rigid military gang. The biological reality is honestly much less theatrical. A pack is mostly just a breeding pair and their offspring. It's literally just a family raising pups together, attempting to agree on things while running. Because of this, pack cooperation doesn't mean automatic, fearless confidence. They are individuals, and they are highly prone to hesitation when facing unfamiliar risks, like us.
But add a dog to the mix and things get very complicated. To us, a dog is a beloved family member or, an enthusiastic roommate. But to a wild wolf, a dog is a strange canid entering their territory and acting like a competitor. A domestic dog can trigger intense territorial and defensive responses from a pack. And this is exactly why leash laws in wolf country aren't there to insult your pet. They're absolutely crucial rules designed to protect both the dog and the owner from getting pulled into a totally avoidable conflict. So, given all of this evidence, why are we still so terrified of wolves? Well, it's a profound psychological bias. Our fear of wolves is just so vivid. It perfectly resembles ancient stories of darkness, teeth, and monsters lurking out in the woods. And because our brains are wired for stories, not logical spreadsheets, this vivid dread completely overshadows the boring daily risks that are actually a statistically higher threat to us in the wild. Things like tripping and falling, exposure to the cold, or even just the car crash on the way to the trailhead.
So the crucial point is knowing exactly what to do during an incredibly rare close encounter. If a wolf doesn't leave on its own, here is exactly what you do. First, stand up and make yourself look large. Second, speak or shout firmly. Third, back away slowly and never ever run, because panicking just creates a new situation. Finally, use noise or throw objects. By doing this, you are actively maintaining the illusion that humans are difficult, dangerous, and unpredictable.
Ultimately, when a wolf leaves you alone, it leaves not because you are stronger, but because you are riskier. Our historical lethality and our bizarre, upright behavior are our absolute best defenses out there. So the next time you step into the deep woods and feel that sudden shiver down your spine, ask yourself, are you truly the prey, or are you actually the biggest risk in the forest?